You're listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. Spring will be here soon, so if buying a new home is on your to-do list, right now is the time to call Quicken Loans. Learn about which mortgage options make sense for you and get a jump on your competition. With our exclusive Rate Shield approval, the low rate you lock today is protected for up to 90 days while you shop for your new home. With a Rate Shield approval, if rates go up, your low rate stays locked. But if rates go down, you get that new, even lower rate. Either way, you win. Talk to us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's another great reason to work with us. For a record 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, to lock in today's low mortgage interest rate and get the security of our exclusive Rate Shield approval, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed-rate loans. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Hi, welcome to the Subway ad for the new Sesame Ginger Glazed Chicken Signature Wrap. How would you like it?
I'll take a...
Sports announcer at home?
Yeah, how'd you...
We just know.
My wife picks up the new signature wrap. It's got double the rotisserie-style chicken mixed with a sesame ginger glaze. She appears annoyed at me, but she shrugs it off. Those sweet and savory flavors are calling her name. She lifts the wrap and she takes the bite! Incredible! And now she's closing the door on my... Subway, make it what you want.
Limited time only at participating restaurants. Double meat based on average 6-inch sub.
I'm Little Teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out.
This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Thoughts of suicide may feel impossible to overcome, but with help and support, you can find hope and meaning. Call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK to speak to a counselor, or visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org. It's free, it's confidential, it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And even if it feels like it, you are not alone.
Sideline, 10, touchdown on a kickoff return.
Up the sideline. Looks like it's intercepted, and it is. Chris Boyd. Cameron Smith. Ellinger down the field. Touchdown, Texas. Joshua Moore. McGrath blocked, loose, Texas has it, Wheeler down the sideline, touchdown
Longhorns. The snap's to Mond, they need the touchdown, Kellen throws across the middle, touchdown, Aggies, Courtney Davis.
Hey y'all, welcome to A Pod Divided. I am your co-host, Laura Lee Muyernick, and with me, the lovely Aggie. Hey Aggie.
Howdy, howdy.
So y'all, we sure thank you for joining us. And to the table today. So we are bringing items brought to you by the letter M for money. And we are going to start that by doing my little football segment here. And I got interested in M for money because last week, Ohio State defensive end Chase Young was benched from the game for taking a loan that he did repay from a so-called family friend who actually turned out to be an agent for NFL players. So that always brings up that wonderful controversy called, do we pay college football players? And I saw a really good, kind of idea of how to work with this. And I'm going to credit it to Shane Wright. He posted this on a Facebook page I'm on that talks about sports, and I thought it was pretty cool. Now, it is long-winded, and I think that's because the dude's a lawyer. But anyway, bear with me. Thank you, Shane, and bear with me while I read this. I'm going to first of all give y'all my unvarnished opinion here before I get into this. After learning some of the things I have learned in my time covering football and then researching for the book, if you ever really want to know kind of the scoop, there is a book called The System, and it's by Armin Katayan, the former sportscaster, and then he's with somebody else. But anyway, it was one of the best research resources I had when I was looking it up. And after realizing it sounds like football players get a good deal when they sign up to go to school, and they shouldn't get paid. They should get paid because they have the scholarship and they have a place to live, etc. That is not always enough, to be quite honest. And when I learned just exactly how much money they make for these schools, that's sort of when I'm like, is this really worth it? So I am not opposed to the idea of paying, but with some really good, guidelines to it. I also think being able to make money off of their likeness is not horrible. Again, it just depends on the governance of it. And quite frankly, I don't trust the NCAA to govern it correctly because they're the ones that have been making the money off these kids for so long. But anyway, in a perfect world, in a dream world, we would have a way where these kids could kind of earn extra money, almost like a campus work study type of thing. So they're not getting rich, but it would likely lessen the payouts they're getting already under the table. Shane Wright says, and I'm going to cut out the salty language just so you know. Okay. More and more, I want to see the Power Five, I can use this, flip the bird to the NCAA and form their own governing body. Implement strict salary caps, quote unquote, of $1,000 a week during the season and $500 a week during the off season. Players get a $1,000 bonus up front at the beginning of the season. Half of the rest of their earning go into an interest-bearing account that they can't access until they graduate, drop out, with a 1-year waiting period unless there's a documented hardship, or enter the draft. Players can negotiate their own contracts with the university regarding the use of their likeness for advertising and promotions. Players can keep the first $3,000 earned each semester. The rest goes into the interest-bearing account. I'll say this much. Let me stop here. I kind of like the idea of an account, that they can't touch. They could earn interest on it. I think that's a really good idea. Okay, there's no such thing as recruiting violations. Contact players whenever you darn well please. Each Power 5 school gets, this is hilarious, y'all, each Power 5 school gets $250,000 budget for palm greasing and quote-unquote recruiting incentives. If you win the conference, you get an extra $50,000. If you win a playoff game, another $50,000. So if you win the whole championship, you have an extra $150,000 to grease palms with. Guys, that's probably nothing compared to what they're doing right now. So this is actually kind of, I see where he's coming from on this. Players can accept.
It would be a deterrent of some sort.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, players can accept up to $5,000 per semester for non-academic expenses from blood relatives, godparents, or charitable organizations. This is something where a lot of people get in trouble, and if I recall correctly, this is what the Chase Young thing was about in another situation, or some other player. The parents needed money to get to a bowl game, and they got the money from, I think, a booster or something like that. Forgive me for not doing my research. Anyway, this is a common thing. If the parents need help getting to a game or with something like that, people like to step up and help, and they get in trouble for it. I would like to remind most of y'all that a goodly percentage of these players come from backgrounds where the parents really may not be able to shell it out to go to an away game or a bowl game, especially if it's really far away from where they live. So that's something to consider too. Okay. Non-scholarship players can accept up to 100% the cost of tuition and housing for academic expenses paid directly to the school. If a coach contacts another school's player during the season and said player chooses to transfer, the new school has to pay all player expenses the old school incurred on said player to that point, which makes sense to me. But there's no waiting period. Player can transfer next semester and hit the ground running, which would get around some of the ridiculous transfer stuff that NCAA puts these kids through. Players are free to contact any professional agents they want whenever they want. Again, another good idea, because if they've got things kind of settled better with the finances, the agents may not even contact them as much. So, I mean, seriously, it's like, it's kind of weird. This is a problem with basketball too, but that's another story. Players who suffer career-ending injuries during college athletics are entitled to remain on the school's health insurance plan at no cost for 15 years. Players who suffer life-altering debilitating injuries are entitled to remain on the school's insurance for life. That, I don't know, I forgot about this part. That's really interesting, Shane, because, yeah, some of these kids, that's it, end of the line. They don't get to make it to the NFL, and they are kind of left adrift, and that is where some problems can happen, because they don't really have any assistance. Schools may not auction off, sell, gift, or otherwise transfer game or player memorabilia without paying fair market value to the players unless such players agree to the transfer for charitable purposes. And that makes sense because, every once in a while, with the pros, you'll bid on a football autographed by XYZ player or whatever. So I can kind of understand that. For the college football playoff specifically, official rankings stop at 15. Wouldn't that be nice? 6 teams make the playoffs. Top 2 teams get a first-round bye. This is almost like NFL. Each conference champion gets in plus a wild card. Yeah, this is like NFL. Top 2 teams and wild card determined by blind vote of all power coaches, public vote of a 12-member committee, which will be elected annually by each Power 5 AD and head coach. Public vote of 20 established sports writers and analysts, selected by season ticket holders of Power 5 teams via a ranking poll. And between those, that equals out to 100%. If you get ejected for targeting, you remain on the sidelines unless the ref determines that the intent was to injure and had no football purpose, which can happen. Have y'all seen targeting where it's like, was it really targeting or was it just inertia? I mean, sometimes I wonder about that.
Been very iffy calls.
Yeah. Some refs are just really happy about calling targeting, and sometimes I'm like, gosh, really? If you're 250 pounds and you're running that fast and you're like leaping, maybe, just maybe, you couldn't have stopped yourself. But anyway, holding on 3rd and 4th down is only a 5-yard penalty. Pass interference is a spot foul if the ball hits the intended receiver. Otherwise, it remains a 15-yard penalty. Inside instead of the onside kick, a coach can elect to have the ball at the 20, but it's automatically 4th and 15. This will be so much more entertaining. Okay, so anyway, this is more like general rules. But anyway, that was kind of what he was talking about, which as far as payment is concerned, and that's sort of what I see in my head. Maybe not exactly like he is saying, but something to give them some incentive, something to make it, I don't know, have some kind of guidelines, some kind of rules for this, because it would be, I think, ultimately better for the players, especially if they do get kicked, or if they do end their careers through injuries. And I think just better for the game itself, because it's just a little bit cleaner. So anyway, Aggie, we were talking a little bit before the show about the benefit of paying players, and what was something you were thinking? What were some of your thoughts?
Well, one of the things that always kind of bothers me, and like I said, I'm like totally clueless when it comes to this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But as you recall, there was a time in our glorious Aggie history that we had a quarterback by the name of Johnny Manziel, and whom I always thought was a little crazy, and God help him, I hope he got the help he needed. But there was a time, that he was so popular that A&M was benefiting from his likeness, and it always bothered me that he was prevented from doing so. He, at the time, and I'm saying this, I'm underlining it 3 times. At the time, he was actually a really good role model. And so A&M actually used him as, a role model for kids who wanted to do things in a quirky manner. I mean, he was a very unconventional quarterback. I sometimes I'll watch again and I'll be going, how does he bend that way? And how does inertia work when he's doing this? I just don't understand the physics of his movements. I never did. But, as you recall, he did the little money sign, and he got fined for that. And the following year, a bunch of other football players were doing the money sign, and nobody got penalized. So for me, it seemed like you're sending out the wrong message, because he's more popular. You're going to find him because that way you can get more money. But you're not going to find the third string, wide receiver who did it. Because why? Because his name isn't popular enough, or for whatever reason. So for me, it's always been that. I don't know if you remember, there was we in our illustrious history have had 2 Heisman Trophy winners. John David Crow being our first, and there was a beautiful photograph that was taken of John David Crow and Johnny Manziel tossing the football to each other. And this is when they first met. It was a lovely meeting. It was something that Johnny Manziel to this day still treasures very much. And it made the rounds. It was celebrated. It was nominated for awards and all this stuff. And A&M was benefiting from this monetarily. But neither was, Manziel was not. And I believe that John David Crow didn't either. And admittedly, he's passed away since then. And at the time, he was a retired insurance salesman. But the fact remained, that was his likeness. And A&M didn't seek permission to use it for financial purposes. And for me, that always sat wrong. Because if you're bringing the spotlight to your school, you should get some kind of compensation for doing that. You're basically doing free publicity for the school. And I think that having some kind of compensation set aside in a and an account that they cannot touch until like a year after they leave school for whatever reason. Either they got, they graduated, or they dropped out, or they transferred to another school, or they're seeking a, higher degree, or for whatever reason.
Right.
I think that would be a great idea and a good incentive to, quell that whole, well, show me the money type of situation that you get a lot. So to me, it makes sense.
Yeah, I just, the
But you have to
NCAA,
fear it,
yeah, the NCAA is so, they're so ridiculous.
Well, the NCAA is not here for the sports. They're a
No.
business.
Yeah,
That's what a lot
totally
of
for the
forget.
money. Mm-hmm. Totally about the money. When you think about how much money is brought in through football in particular, men's basketball as well for a lot of schools, but the television revenue, and then if you go to playoffs or a bowl game, what have you, it brings in so much money, and it helps with, believe it or not, it helps with getting kids to come to school. It helps with recruiting just students. Because everybody wants to be with a winner.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. There was, back when I was in college, our heyday was also in baseball. A lot of people don't know, but we had a fabulous baseball team when I was in college. This was back mid to late 80s.
Okay.
And we had scouts from the Yankees organization. We had scouts from the Brewers organization. We had scouts from the Padres, from all over the place that were coming to A&M to see it. And now Olsen Field was not what it looks like today. It had maybe 5 bleachers and a spotlight, maybe. I don't know. But, these kids were bringing a lot of attention to the school, and we were recruiting a lot of good baseball players from high schools. Well, these high schools were also had kids that wanted to go to the schools where their baseball players went to. So, there was an influx when we were recruiting baseball players. I want to say around 88 or so. Yes, I'm telling you how old I am.
That's okay, because you're gorgeous.
Thank you. And I mean, we were getting a lot from, I want to say Yoakum, and from Houston, and from Austin. And a lot of the kids that were graduating in those classes were actually not going to UT. They were going to A&M because they wanted to follow. They wanted to follow the baseball team wherever they went. So it is a recruiting tool for academics, not just sports. And a lot of people miss that connection.
Yeah. Yeah. It is also another way it brings in money is from alumni, because they want to keep things going. They want to keep winning. So really, there's just so many other benefits to it that I really don't have a problem within reason with having these players make a little something. So, but as always, it would just depend on under what circumstances. But I do think the idea of putting it up in an account for them later on would be great. Again,
so act as a buffer in case something went wrong and they did not get a career out of it. Or now, I'm not saying that a lot of the football players are there to try and get into the NFL. A lot of them actually attend school to get the education. Football happens to be the sideline. So, but some of these kids really that's their only outlet. That's their only out of I don't want to say a poverty situation, but low income, definitely.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, I saw it back home, growing up in the Rio Grande Valley all the time. And it was tragic if it didn't pan out and they didn't have a fallback,
Exactly. And it's, especially if it is a first generation college student, and they don't have a lot of knowledge of how college works and how sports works, etc., they really can just be lost if things don't work out. So I think, again, it would be good for them to have a little something to kind of fall back on, like you say. So anyway, that was a very interesting proposal from Shane Wright. Thank you so much. And Jeff is upset that Kentucky basketball lost to Evansville. So yeah, that is pretty crazy. Anyway, there you are. So that is the first segment in our M is for Money podcast. And we are going to come back soon and we will talk about the other M is for Money fun stuff on the table with Aggie. So y'all stay tuned.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. Spring will be here soon, so if buying a new home is on your to-do list, right now is the time to call Quicken Loans. Learn about which mortgage options make sense for you and get a jump on your competition. With our exclusive Rate Shield approval, the low rate you lock today is protected for up to 90 days while you shop for your new home. With a Rate Shield approval, if rates go up, your low rate stays locked. But if rates go down, you get that new, even lower rate. Either way, you win. Talk to us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's another great reason to work with us. For a record 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, to lock in today's low mortgage interest rate and get the security of our exclusive Rate Shield approval, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
For JD Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed-rate loans. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Hi, welcome to the Subway ad for the new Sesame Ginger Glazed Chicken Signature Wrap. How would you like it?
I'll take a...
Sports announcer at home?
Yeah, how'd you...
We just know.
My wife picks up the new signature wrap. It's got double the rotisserie-style chicken mix with a sesame ginger glaze. She appears annoyed at me, but she shrugs it off. Those sweet and savory flavors are calling her name. She lifts the wrap and she takes the bite! Incredible! And now she's closing the door on my... Subway, make it what you want.
Limited time only at participating restaurants. Double meat based on average 6-inch sub.
I'm little teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and
pour me out. This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Okay, y'all. Let's see here. Norm is talking about how many kids are drafted out of the NFL and how many college players the percentage ain't good. Boy, you are just not joking. Yeah. That's why I'm like, it's crazy. It is a crazy machine. So anyway, all right, we are back. And now we are at the second half of our
M is for Money show. And Aggie has brought some Sesame Street plush toys to the table. So,
thank you for that. Could have gone really bad.
I know. Well, I thought about what we said during the break, and I'm like, oh, here we go. So anyway, so here we are. Aggie, talk to us about Sesame Street.
Well, I'm not sure if a lot of people know, but Sesame Street celebrated its 50th year being live on the air. They actually premiered the first episode November 10th, 1969.
Wow.
And one of the things that made Sesame Street a lot different from other kid shows was the fact that it was diverse in race and culture from the beginning. And it had the first characters. There were only 4 characters, 2 of which were African American, I believe, and the other white. And one of the longest running characters was Bob. He was there from the beginning. He just retired in 2016, so he's well over 40 years as Bob. And he was one of my favorites because he was the musical dude, and he had his friend Linda, who was deaf, and he did sign language with her, which was another thing that they brought as far as education. They put a light out on deaf, the deaf culture and sign language and how important it was to communicate.
Yeah.
What a lot of people, some people on Twitter may know is that I came here from Puerto Rico and I didn't know any English. And when we got here, my sister and I were put in English as a second language school. It was completely immersion for the entire year. And you basically had to learn English in a year's time. But one of the things that my dad told us when we would get home was we could only watch 2 things on TV. One was Sesame Street, and the other one was the newscast. And the way he saw it was these 2 shows were actually speaking to the person on the other side of the tube, right? So instead of talking to each other, they were talking to you so that you would be able to pick it up faster. So when I got here, we started watching Sesame Street and, C is for Cookie. That was my favorite, obviously. And, just having all of these different characters, all of the monsters were, you're looking back, they had no race, but you knew that they were all diverse. They were all different.
Yeah.
It was the same thing with everybody that was on the show. And for me, Sesame Street was instrumental because they were not afraid to tackle social concerns and explain them in a way that a child would understand. And I think the most important episode for that happened when the gentleman, his name escapes me, but Mr. Hooper, when he passed away.
Yes.
When we heard that he died in 1982, and I was in high school by this time, and I was in tears when I heard, okay.
Oh, I was sad too. Yes. Isn't that amazing?
And it was really hard because I just didn't see him being replaced by another person to play Mr. Hooper. Even though some of the characters have been replaced through the years, I couldn't see it. I just didn't see it. He was just so original and so well cast. I just couldn't see someone like an actor doing it. So I did wonder what was going to happen. And sure enough, Sesame Street decided to tackle this head on and try to explain to children what happens when someone dies. Now, and the way the story developed was Big Bird was looking for Mr. Hooper, and everybody was sad. and they were, in tears. And this was not acting. This was done. This episode was done completely off the cuff because they wanted to be able. They didn't want it to practice. They didn't want it to come forth as something that had been rehearsed. So you have, Louise and Maria and Gordon and Susan, and they were all in tears because Mr. Hooper had passed away, and they had to talk about this to Big Bird because Big Bird did not understand what death was. And I watched that episode, and my mom said, "You need to go get a roll of toilet paper because you're just crying too much." And she, at the time we didn't have a VCR yet. We didn't have, TiVo or anything like that. So I screamed at Mom, I can't miss this episode. You're going to have to go get it for me. So she brought me a roll of toilet paper so I could dry my tears.
Oh, that's so funny. That is so funny.
But I saw my mom, and my mom was crying too. So she was not unaffected, okay? That episode touched a lot of people from
It did.
all ages. And it was just beautifully done. And it really did help explain, death to a child. And for me, that was possibly the best episode they ever did. And another episode that I still remember, and I was in college for this, and I actually missed a friend's graduation so I could watch this episode.
Shut up. This is obviously pre-TiVo.
This is pre-TiVo. This is when Louise and Maria got married.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Remember? This was big.
Big
they
deal.
Had been dating for years.
Yes.
And so when they wanted to explain to kids what marriage meant, what was going on and all that stuff. Now, for the longest time, I thought Louise and Maria were a couple in real life. No, they were not. They had their own spouses and their own families and all that stuff. This was all just for Sesame Street. They were good friends, but that was about it. That episode, I think it was like 4 or 5 of us that were in a dorm went in search of a TV so that we could all watch it. And somebody got ice cream, and somebody ran and got, 2 bags of potato chips. And it was like the biggest event ever.
That is so sweet. I love that.
But for me, Sesame Street has always been a vanguard. I mean, they've done things that a lot of other shows didn't know how to tackle. They were afraid to tackle it, or felt it was not politically correct. One of the another thing I remember was Louise and Maria had a daughter named Gabby, and later on, when she's a teen, she started dating. The guy that she was dating was Savion Glover, who was an African American actor, and she was Hispanic. This was a way to explain interracial dating. So kids that would see it would understand what it was. And, a lot of people just never thought to do something like this.
Right.
And it was actually a really cool experiment. Now, some of the things that they do on Sesame Street, I really don't agree with. When they decided to go on the whole cookie as a sometime food, no. Cookie is an always food, and I will die on that hill.
Yes, I totally understand that. I have to. This is a really funny one. Bo says in here about the wedding. It was Luke and Laura with Muppets. And you know what? Okay, this is what's so bad. This is what is so bad. Okay, I did not go to daycare as a little girl. I went to my abuela's house, and really, I watched Sesame Street in the morning and General Hospital in the afternoon. And when you talked about what a big deal this wedding was, I remember the 2 weddings that were a big deal at Abuela's house.
I was in high school, and let me tell you
Luke
something.
And Laura.
Half of the girls in my class skipped school that day for that wedding.
Yeah.
And none of us, and I include myself in this because I did skip school that one day, none of us got an excused absence because two of the vice principals also got out.
Oh my gosh, that is too hilarious. So yes, when you talked about what a big deal the Sesame Street wedding was, I was like, yeah, it was right up there with Luke and Laura. So Bo, let me tell you, you are so tracking with us. So anyway, that is hilarious. You know, Aggie, my kids are
the Rubicon. With the Joe and Blair thing, he just stepped over the Rubicon.
Yeah, he did. It's a good thing Angie isn't here. Anyway, my kids are they're past the Sesame Street age, but I have watched Sesame Street in more recent days. And one of the most interesting ones I watched was when, I can't remember if it was that really big that really big storm that hit the Jersey Shore right before the election. The one that made Obama that weird storm Sandy or whatever that was.
Superstorm Sandy.
Well,
the only storm to have that delegation. Superstorm.
That's right. That Superstorm Sandy. Well, they talked about it on Sesame Street, and because Big Bird's nest was destroyed, and that was how they approached it. And I just remember, I was really impressed with how they did it. And, Big Bird but I'm very sad. This makes me very sad, and they were like, it's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad, type of thing. So anyway, that is something that they have continued to be on the vanguard with, talking about current events and how they can affect the kids. They now have a character who is autistic. They have a character who has a parent in jail. They have a character who is in a foster home. They've done a lot to just sort of, I guess, change with the times. And so while they're timeless, they're still relevant too. So anyway, I'm so glad you brought this up. This was awesome.
Yeah.
But I really love your personal experience with how it helped you with English, learning English. So that's cool.
It was really cool because, I would go to, after that year that we spent in ESL, we went back to regular elementary school, and we ended up losing a year, but in my opinion, it was completely worth it. I don't regret that at all. And I remember going through all the lessons, and I would picture them like Sesame Street would do it. C is for this, and M is for that. And today, the number of the day is this, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's a great memory. I think the reason that Sesame Street, and it's not just here in America. There are variations of Sesame Street throughout the world. Plaza Sésamo comes to mind.
Plaza Sésamo. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there is a French one, and there is a German one, and there is an Italian one. I've seen those, and I believe there's one in the Middle East as well. So it's all over the world in different languages. But I think the reason that it's so popular and it transcends is that it's about not social justice, but it's about social ideals.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes a difference. It really does make a difference. And it's always trying to explain an adult situation to a child.
To a child, yes. Yes.
And that to me is very important because, sometimes you just don't know how to do it. And, going back to Mr. Hooper's death, I mean, I wouldn't know how to tell a 5-year-old, somebody they knew and loved had passed away. That episode really, really helped with that.
So. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. So now I would like you to take Big Bird and Cookie Monster, and you can go ahead and return them to your toy box. And so...
Hey, at least it wasn't a Tickle Me Elmo.
No, aren't you glad I stayed away from that one? But anyway, so that said, let's continue our M is for Money show by asking what we have to drink this week, Aggie?
So we had M is for money in college, and M is for money in merchandising in Sesame Street, as well as the memories that it gave us. And now M is actually for our girly drink of the week, which is the mimosa.
Ooh!
Yes, it's a very simple drink, and it's a classy way to get shit-faced on Sunday mornings.
It is, girl. It is. Yeah.
It's the best drink ever.
Yes, it is. It really is.
I remember going to visit when my parents lived in El Paso for a time, and every so often after church we would go to this really nice restaurant that had a brunch buffet and all the mimosas you care to drink. And I was so glad that I was overage because and I was not driving. That was the plus. But it's a really easy drink to fix. All it is orange juice and sparkling wine and a little bit of triple sec of your choice. Most people use Grand Marnier, but any triple sec will do. And it's 1/3 cup of orange juice, and it's your choice, pulp free. Most people just don't really care about the third cup anyway.
No.
1/3 cup of sparkling wine. And I say sparkling wine because, as we all know, France got mad at us using the term champagne because champagne only comes from France. So we say sparkling wine. And a tablespoon of triple sec. Now, because it's such a simple recipe, you can do a lot of variations. You can change the juice out and use pomegranate juice or use cranberry juice. And those two are very festive for the coming holidays.
Yes.
And my personal favorite, I take out the triple sec and I put Chambord instead. I love Chambord. And
okay.
The sweeter the liqueur, the better it is for me. My sweet tooth. But that one is really, really, really sweet. So you might want to cut back on the sweetness on that one. But those are some variations that you can do. And I know that my sister does a variation where she uses the orange juice and she uses sparkling wine, and instead of triple sec, she puts vodka. So it's kind of like a mimosa screwdriver thing going on.
Interesting.
Yeah, and another one prefers to use cranberry juice instead of orange juice. She doesn't care for orange juice, so she's always using the cranberry juice.
Okay.
And sometimes she'll actually use Red Bull.
Well, there you go.
I'm like, oh,
wow.
Even I won't drink that, but whatever.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. Well, so okay, y'all. So that's mimosa, and Aggie will have that recipe after the show, and I have brought everything I wanted to bring, and I think, Aggie, do you have anything else for us?
No, just no, I think I'll just make a mimosa now.
I know, it sounds really good. It sounds really good. I had a really great day, but I got so much done, and now I'm just whooped. And so, like, really, any kind of alcohol right now sounds pretty good. But anyway,
yeah, I spent it. I had to take the dogs to the vet and run some errands too, and I'm like, I'm just right now.
Yeah. So, all right, Lou, I know you love it when I put you on the spot. So hopefully by me dragging this out, this gives you time to get to where you can get on the mic here real quick. What's yay. Okay. What's coming up next here for KLRN?
Next, I believe we have Rick and maybe Orty is on tonight. It's Tuesday. I'm pretty, let's see, it's, what time is it? It's almost 10 o'clock Eastern. Yeah, so Rick should be up next as far as I know. He will be up.
Great.
So,
Awesome. And as always, hang out tomorrow night because Wednesday night is so much fun here on KLRN. And we sure thank all y'all for being around tonight with us. Oh, okay, it's Jen. Okay, it's Rick and Jen. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks so much for showing up, and we will see y'all next time. Enjoy the rest of your week, y'all.
Good night, everybody.
You say you're not from Texas, man, as if I couldn't tell. Well, you think you pull your boots on right and wear your hat so well. So pardon me my laughter, as I sure do understand. Even Moses got excited when he saw the promised land. That's right, you're not Texas. That's right, you're not Texas. That's right, you're not Texas. Texas wants you anyway. That's right, you're not Texas. That's right, you're not Texas. That's right, you're not Texas. Texas wants you anyways. I was born and raised in Texas, and it means so much to me. And though my girl comes from down in Georgia, we were up in Tennessee. And as we were driving down the highway, she asked me, baby, what's so great? How come you're always going on about the Lone Star State? I said, that's right, you're not Texas. That's right, you're not Texas. That's right, you're not Texas. Texas wants you anyway. That's right, you're not Texas. That's right, you're not Texas. That's right.
Thoughts of suicide may feel impossible to overcome, but with help and support, you can find hope and meaning. Call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK to speak to a counselor, or visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org. It's free, it's confidential, it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And even if it feels like it, you are not alone.